Cape Public Safety officials are expressing concerns about the lack of an evacuation plan if there were a nuclear disaster at the Pilgrim nuclear power station in Plymouth. You may be paying more to get rid of your trash next year. Plus, find out where and when to get your yearly flu shot. These stories and more on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Tuesday, October 1st, 2013. I'm Sarah Mantle. Cape Public Safety leaders are working to craft an evacuation plan that would be used following a nuclear disaster at the Pilgrim nuclear power station in Plymouth. The Barnstable County Regional Emergency Planning Committee met yesterday to discuss options. Barnstable Deputy Chief of Police Craig Tamish was at that meeting. He says right now the Cape only has an evacuation plan for weather-related emergencies.
Because of the nature of the Cape, it was looked at and decided that a regional group, as opposed to each town coming up with a separate plan, it made much more sense for a regional group to come up with a regional all-hazards plan, and that was done. The committee then moved its focus on to other things. I think you're very aware that the regional sheltering program is under the auspices of the Regional Emergency Planning Committee. There were several other initiatives they had, such as bringing health agents in and some of the planning for flu pandemics and things like that. But one of the things that we are now looking at is pretty much as a result of the disaster at Fukushima in Japan, where they had the tidal wave that hit the nuclear power plant a couple of years ago. It really brought home the fact that we on the Cape really didn't have a lot of knowledge about the plans, the emergency plans that were in place for the Plymouth nuclear power plant that's run by Entergy. So about a year ago, this committee was formed and has been looking into the plans that are both in place and more particularly how they impact Cape Cod.
A recent survey found that 70% of Cape Codders would evacuate in the event of a disaster at the Pilgrim nuclear power station. Tamish says that finding increases the need for an evacuation plan.
One of the things that this committee, in working with MEMA, has and Entergy, who is the corporate entity that runs the Plymouth plant, is a company called KLD Engineering, has completed a survey of approximately 500 households on the Cape about whether they would or would not evacuate in the case of an emergency at Pilgrim. And the results were quite startling, frankly. When Plymouth developed their nuclear plants, they used a working assumption that no more than 20% of the people in the Bourne, Sandwich, Upper Cape area might evacuate, and the people on the Lower Cape would not attempt to evacuate at all. The survey showed this to be a very false assumption. In fact, approximately 70% of the people on the Cape stated that they would evacuate if they were asked to do so, advised to do so, in the case of a problem there. Well, as you know, and we see it every weekend, that's just not going to happen. And the other thing is that the current plan for the Plymouth plant, the people in South Sandwich would be evacuated to the west towards the 195 area, New Bedford, that area, which means that they would close down Route 6, or severely limit at least traffic coming off of the Sagamore Bridge, trying to get on Route 6 east, where I'm talking about the first exit by McDonald's in that area. And, people would then be forced, if they're trying to go over the Sagamore Bridge, to go north, which would be into the, if you want to call it the danger zone, of the Plume area. then people might try to get off of the Bourne Bridge. Well, the Bourne Bridge would be somewhat similar. You would have a lot of people coming down that Route 6 to the Bourne Rotary, or trying to get up to 195 and across. So, there are a lot of issues with the evacuation plan as it currently exists for Plymouth, and there have been minimal planning done for the Cape.
Tamish says the planning committee will remain involved in the process of drafting that evacuation plan. You may have to fork out a little extra dough next year when purchasing your dump sticker. The Department of Public Works is asking to raise the resident sticker $10 a year to $160. Assistant Director Rob Steen says the increase is necessary.
Quite simply, that is based on the fact that we've been operating in the red at the Solid Waste Division for the past couple of years. In FY13, we've had to take $436,254 out of the reserves to help fund the operating budget. Now, of that, $315,540 is for the debt service to capping of the landfill. And the decision was made at one point in time to say, look, instead of raising fees to handle that debt service, let's take that from the reserve account. So that's appropriate to come from there, and the budget accommodates that. However, there was an additional $120,714 in FY13 that was taken from there as well to cover just normal operating budget. Again, in 14, that was repeated. Numbers were slightly less, with about $428,000 coming out of the reserve account in total. Of that, $320,000 plus or minus to go into the debt service, but then about $107,000 was used for the actual operating budget. So you can see that on a yearly basis over the past couple of years, we've been about $100,000 to $115,000 on average in the red at the solid waste account, at the solid waste division. There is a reserve fund there. That's what it's for. It can handle some of those kinds of things. However, given the fact that we have a significant change coming up in tipping fees, and that we may want to utilize some of that reserve fund money to sort of buffer that change so that it doesn't become a dramatic change all at once, what we're asking for this year is to try to get back to even at this point, so that when those new fees come in, it comes in at a point where we're even and we're not operating in the red. To do that, since we have approximately 9,500 stickers, a $10 increase would give us a revenue of about $95,000 additional per year, which would effectively clean up most of that deficit that we've been running on a yearly basis.
Several other departments are also requesting fee increases. One of the larger increases that was requested was from the Marine and Environmental Department. They would like to raise the individual mooring permit fee from $70 a year to $90 a year. For a full list of all proposed fee increases, you can visit the Town of Barnstable's website and look under recent additions. Town Manager Tom Lynch will now review the proposed fee increases before making a recommendation to Town Council. The art shanties in Bismore Park have been a draw for both residents and visitors over the past few years. Town leaders now want to expand the program. Director of Growth Management Joanne Miller-Buntich says adding art shanties closer to Main Street will strengthen the connection between Main Street and the harbor.
We're looking at two venues for shanty expansion, both of which, interestingly enough, might not require that they be removed. The shanties at Bismore, of course, has to be removed because they're actually in a floodplain and can only be categorized as temporary structures. And so we've had a very preliminary conversation with the Maritime Museum, and they might be interested in a couple of shanties there. And then on the town property at the corner of Ocean Street and South Street, there's sort of a circular feature to the walkway to the sea space there. And we're looking at a proposal. We're getting together a budget to determine what the cost would be to add some shanties there.
Buntich says over the next year, the town will develop the shanty expansion plan before taking it to Town Council. You can sharpen your spending and saving skills at a money conference that will be held Saturday at the Cape Cod Community College. The money conference will help attendees plan for the future, create a budget, and make better financial decisions. All are welcome to attend. The conference is free and includes continental breakfast, lunch, and even childcare. The event runs from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Saturday, October 5th. And just a reminder that flu clinics will be held in Barnstable in the coming weeks. 2 clinics are planned at St. George's Greek Orthodox Church in Centerville. The first will be from 9 a.m. to noon on Wednesday, October 9th. The second from 2 to 5 p.m. on Wednesday, October 30th. The clinic is open to town residents only, and there is a $10 fee to receive a shot. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Mannel.